Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tang Men based on novel. So let's start. Dai Luoli had been following the White Tiger Duke, Dai Hao, and he stared at Huo Yuhao with eyes brimming with excitement. He wanted to say something, but Huo Yuhao stopped him with a look. Princess Wei Na and Princess Jojo came forward to make their greetings one after another. From their perspective, Huo Yuhao naturally couldn't compare to these people standing inside the tent in terms of strength. But in terms of status, he was either at the same status with everyone else, or perhaps even greater. He could be considered a key figure who had turned the tide of battle. Huo Yuhao greeted everyone one after another. The title Doluor had different expressions when they looked at him. The body Doluor, Dubuzi had no expression at all, but the other title Doluor mostly reacted with shock. Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong were the last to arrive out of everyone who was participating in this operation. Some of the others had been here for a day or two, while there were some who had been here for 6 or 7 days. Even though Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong weren't late, that disparity caused some of the most powerful individuals in the world of Soul Masters to be displeased. The White Tiger Duke held Huo Yuhao's hand and walked inside with him before he turned to everyone else and said, "Come, let me make an introduction. Huo Yuhao is a gifted student from Shrek Academy, and he is known as the Eye of the Azura. Don't look down on him because he's young. Back then, he was a great help to us, and the Star Luo Empire probably wouldn't have been able to retake the Ming-Do mountain range without him." The titled Doluor, who were here, were naturally split into 3 different parties according to which empire they were from. The titled Doluor, who were from the Star Luo Empire, all smiled and tilted their heads slightly as a gesture of amiability and friendliness. They had fought side by side with Huo Yuhao back then, and they had sufficiently experienced the tremendous benefit that his spiritual detection conferred on the battlefield. Furthermore, he had triggered the beast god's strength in an epic battle against the death god Doluor. That gave the giant hammer Doluor, the shattered star Doluor, and the others a deep and lasting impression. The titled Doluor from the Heavenly Soul Empire were comparatively more boastful and arrogant. Even though they knew this individual was closely and directly related to the tremendous explosion that had occurred inside the Sun Moon Empire's army, many of Shrek Academy's powerful individuals were there after all. From their perspective, that success was more attributable to Elder Song and Yang Xiaozhi's abilities. The Doling Empire's titled Doluor were most unfamiliar with Huo Yuhao. These titled Doluor were the ones who were clearly displeased that Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong had arrived so long after everyone else did. What were titled Doluor? They held strategic importance within a nation, and any titled Doluor enjoyed an extremely elevated status in their respective empires. They all possessed a kind of arrogance and pride that was unique to them. One of the Doling Empire's titled Doluor looked on as the White Tiger Duke was so warm and passionate to Huo Yuhao even though he had arrived late. He smiled plainly and said, "You're too modest, Duke. We know that credit for reclaiming the Ming-Do mountain range belongs to you." The White Tiger Duke wasn't stupid, and he could immediately tell the displeasure in this elderly man's tone. He hurriedly said to Huo Yuhao, "Come, Yuhao. Let me make the introductions. This is the Heavenly Sun Doluor, and he's from the Doling Empire. He's 150 years old, and his belongs to the world of Soul Masters' older generation. He's a rank 97 Transcendent Doluor, and he's very powerful. This operation is directed mainly by the body Doluor and the Heavenly Sun Doluor. Greetings, Heavenly Sun Doluor." Huo Yuhao gave the Heavenly Sun Doluor a light bow. He probably wasn't that different from him in terms of seniority. Huo Yuhao was the dragon god Doluor Mu Ien's disciple, and Elder Mu had been more than 200 years old when he had passed away. Therefore, Huo Yuhao was actually considered very senior, as he was here as Shrek Academy's representative. The Heavenly Sun Doluor saw that Huo Yuhao only bowed a little, and displeasure immediately appeared in his eyes. He said plainly, "Heroes emerge from the younger generation after all. The new generation of youngsters is better than the older ones. Seems like us old ones are indeed quickly retreating from history." Princess Wei Na laughed and said, "Don't say that, Heavenly Son Doluo. You're old, but still strong and healthy. You can still reign supreme over the world of soul masters for another 100 years without any problems. The Heavenly Son Doluo's attitude was a lot better towards Princess Wei Na as he chuckled and said, I can't live for another 100 years. Perhaps brother Du might have a chance. Du Buzi said plainly, that's enough. Let's not flatter each other. Since everyone is here, let's prepare for the operation, as time is of the essence. Dai Hao, you're the one who came up with the plan. Tell us about it. The White Tiger Duke nodded and said, our operation is called the Emperor Killing Operation, and will be jointly executed by 5 titled Doluo each from the Heavenly Soul Empire, the Doling Empire, and the Star Luo Empire. We will proceed to the Sun Moon Empire and assassinate the Emperor, Shu Qianran. Even though Shu Qianran is still young, he's an incredibly ruthless and ambitious character of his generation. War in the future is inevitable as long as he's around. The Sun Moon Empire is becoming stronger, and we will lose the initiative and end up on the back foot if we don't make a move. The Sun Moon Empire will descend into chaos if we can assassinate Shu Qianran. His brothers will definitely fight with each other for the throne. After all, his son hasn't been born for too long, and it'll be hard for him to ascend to the throne when he's only a year old. A thought occurred to Huo Yuhao as he heard the White Tiger Duke's words. Shu Qianran's son, doesn't that mean he's also Juzi's child? Juzi has given him a child. Juzi's voice and smile surfaced in Huo Yuhao's mind, and a kind of discomfort surfaced in his heart. No matter what, he shared some sentiments with her back then. He had saved her life before, and she had saved his. This time, their operation was targeted at the Sun Moon Empire's emperor, Shu Qianran, who was also Juzi's husband. If they successfully assassinated Shu Qianran, Juzi would no longer have a husband, and her child would no longer have a father. Huo Yuhao heaved a sigh inside as his thoughts stopped there. Juzi was right that his heart was too soft, especially toward people that he cared about. Not even Tang Wutong knew about the thoughts that were surfacing in Huo Yuhao's mind. She thought that he was a little moody, because he had met the White Tiger Duke. The White Tiger Duke continued, it is undoubtedly extremely difficult to assassinate Shu Qianran. But the Doluo continent's 3 native empires will benefit greatly if our operation is successful. That's the reason why I have invited everyone to take this risk in this operation. From my perspective, the most crucial component of our operation is how we are to enter the Sun Moon Empire's territory and infiltrate Radiant City. As long as we can infiltrate Radiant City undetected, we will have practically completed half of our mission. Our spies in the Sun Moon Empire have risked death to relay some intel to us. Roughly 7 days from now, Shu Qianran will participate in the Sun Moon Empire's grand sacrificial ceremony. He's the emperor, so he will undoubtedly be the one performing the sacrificial rites at the ceremony. That's the best opportunity for us to execute our mission. Of course, there will undoubtedly be many powerful individuals by his side during the ceremony. Furthermore, the Sun Moon Empire is adept with all kinds of soul tools. Shu Qianran definitely has a formidable automatic soul tool on him. Therefore, we have to draw the expert fighters by his side away if we wish to assassinate him. So, we have to split our operation into 2 parts. All 15 members will be divided into 2 teams. The Body Doluo will lead one, while the Heavenly Sun Doluo will lead the other. The Body Doluo will lead the 4 other Transcendent Doluo, with the exception of the Heavenly Sun Doluo, and they will prepare to give Shu Qianran a thunderous and fatal blow. The Heavenly Sun Doluo will take the others to create a diversion during the day of the grand sacrificial ceremony. The target of our diversion will be the arsenals inside Radiant City. There are many arsenals in Radiant City, but the most important arsenal is in the city's eastern outskirts. It's relatively far from where the ceremony will be held, and it stores large masses of sealed milk bottles and stationary soul cannon shells. Once the arsenal is attacked, the disturbance will be large enough that Shu Qianran will be alerted. They will be sent into disarray, and the Body Doluo's opportunity will arise when that happens. They will attack Shu Qianran amid the chaos, and everyone will retreat after a single strike. Please be safe, everyone, whether or not the mission is successful. The plan didn't sound very complicated, but there were definitely many problems with the details. How they were to infiltrate the Sun Moon Empire, and then Radiant City, would be a very important problem, before they could even execute their mission. The plan wasn't very intricate, and everything had to be played by ear. Huo Yuhao frowned a little after listening to the White Tiger Duke's plan. A plan that was as vague as this definitely had less than a 50% chance of success. Furthermore, their assassination target was the Sun Moon Empire's emperor. How could the White Tiger Duke have a plan like that? This wasn't like his standard at all. The White Tiger Duke shouldn't make a mistake like that with his intelligence. This operation had an absolutely magnificent lineup. The body sex leader, Dubuzi, was still a rank 98 transcendent Doluor, even if his cultivation hadn't increased for a long time. He was second only to an ultimate Doluor. And even though the Heavenly Sun Doluor seemed a little displeased with Huo Yuhao, he was still a rank 97 transcendent Doluor. He was likely to be the strongest individual in the Doling Empire. They were at the helm of this operation. If the operation failed and they died in the process, it would be a fatal blow to the Doluor continent's 3 native empires. Huo Yuhao had many doubts in his mind, but he was the youngest here, so it wasn't very appropriate for him to ask too much. Dubuzi nodded and said, "That's roughly the plan, but we have to talk more about the details. There isn't much time left, and we have to infiltrate the Sun Moon Empire as quickly as possible." The White Tiger Duke nodded as he turned towards Huo Yuhao beside him. "Yuhao, concealment and infiltration are your strengths. Do you have a way of bringing everyone into the Sun Moon Empire's territory without being discovered?" Huo Yuhao said, "Entering the Sun Moon Empire isn't difficult, but there are aerial and super high aerial surveillance soul tools everywhere inside the Sun Moon Empire's territory. After our previous encounters, the Sun Moon Empire have worked hard on their ground-based aerial surveillance soul tools. Therefore, in order for us not to avoid being discovered after entering the Sun Moon Empire's territory as much as possible, I think the best way is to proceed on foot. The aerial surveillance soul tools cannot have oscillation or thermal detectors attached to them, so as long as we avoid the big cities, we shouldn't have a problem reaching Radiant City's proximity peacefully. We'll break into groups once we reach Radiant City, and we'll disguise ourselves before he sneak our way into Radiant City. That should also not be difficult. But..." He paused for a moment. The White Tiger Duke asked, "But what?" Huo Yuhao continued, "If we wish to reach Radiant City without leaving a trace at all, I hope that everyone can listen to my commands along the way, at least before we reach Radiant City. That is the only way for me to guarantee that I can bring everyone to the right location. Listen to your commands. Little fellow, how old are you?" One of the Doling Empire's titled Doluor asked disdainfully. The White Tiger Duke frowned, and he was about to say something when the Star Luo Empire's shattered Star Doluor lowered his voice and said, "We will listen to whoever is better. We concede that Yuhao is better than we are at concealment and infiltration, and I agree for him to lead us into Radiant City, and I will listen to his commands." The Star Luo Empire's titled Doluor nodded one after another and expressed their approval. The Heavenly Sun Doluor's eyes narrowed. "Are you that confident, little fellow?" Huo Yuhao smiled faintly. He didn't seem affected at all by the doubts that the Doling Empire's titled Doluor were projecting onto him. "If everyone is willing to listen to my commands during the process, then I do have some confidence. Of course, I am not asking any of you to do anything. I just hope that everyone will move according to my spiritual detection when we are executing the mission, so that we can avoid leaving any traces behind." The Heavenly Sun Doluor laughed and turned towards Dubuzi. "Brother Du, the youngsters are so impressive nowadays. At least, they are definitely much more confident than we were back in the day." "I agree," Dubuzi said coldly. The Heavenly Sun Doluor's face froze. Dubuzi actually agreed. He had an arrogant and prideful personality, but he was willing to let this little fellow lead the operation. Dubuzi nodded in Huo Yuhao's direction and said, "Since we are to proceed on foot, time is of the essence. We will leave tomorrow morning." Huo Yuhao nodded and acknowledged, "All right." The titled Doluor returned to their respective tents to rest, while the White Tiger Duke requested for Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong to remain, because he wanted to hold a welcoming dinner for them. A table full of food that wasn't considered too sumptuous was set out in the commander's tent. There was meat and rice, but there wasn't any alcohol. The White Tiger Duke had banned alcohol in his camp, and he led by example. Yuhao, welcome back to the Mingdo mountain range. Let me use tea in place of wine and raise a toast to you. The White Tiger Duke raised his teacup to express his sentiments to Huo Yuhao. Huo Yuhao touched the White Tiger Duke's teacup gently with his own and said plainly, "You're too polite, Duke." Huo Yuhao finally relaxed after interacting with the White Tiger Duke. He stared at the man, who clearly seemed a lot more worn out than before, and he realized helplessly that his own hatred for this man seemed to have become increasingly faint. "You have traveled far, and you must be hungry. You should hurry and have something to eat." The White Tiger Duke laughed as he spoke. Princess Jojo and Dai Yueheng accompanied them for dinner. Dai Luoli didn't seem worthy enough to sit at this table due to his status in the army. Dai Yueheng was sitting opposite Huo Yuhao, and complicated looks appeared in his eyes from time to time. He was already an 8-ringed soldo luo, and in terms of cultivation, he was even more outstanding than the White Tiger Duke was back when they were the same age. However, his advantage didn't seem like anything in front of Huo Yuhao. Huo Yuhao was 7 years younger than he was, but he had already established a resounding reputation in the world of soul masters. That was especially so for the Spirit Pagoda, which had been developing at an exponential rate over recent years. The Star Luo Empire had their own branch of the Spirit Pagoda, and all soul masters would be proud that they could obtain a spirit for themselves. The organization's status in the world of soul masters naturally rose accordingly through the ranks, and their influence increased and expanded at an incredible speed. And the young Huo Yuhao, who was right before him, could be considered the founder of the Spirit Pagoda. Princess Jojo was also staring at Huo Yuhao as strange colors flickered in her beautiful eyes. Huo Yuhao gave her a different feeling every time they met. For instance, what she felt about him in this moment was an immeasurable depth. Yes, she couldn't even tell what cultivation rank he had reached. They enjoyed their dinner and exchanged some tea, before the White Tiger Duke asked someone to light the lamps inside the tent. Dai Luoli and Princess Jojo left. The White Tiger Duke, Huo Yuhao, and Tang Wutong remained inside the commander's tent. "You have something to say to me, sir?" Huo Yuhao asked. The White Tiger Duke nodded gently as he turned towards Huo Yuhao. He lowered his voice and said, "Yuhao, this operation is extremely dangerous. If not for the fact that your abilities are far too important, I wouldn't have asked Shrek Academy to let you come. You have to remember that your responsibility is to take them safely into Radiant City, but concealing them will be sufficient. You don't need to participate when they begin their attack, and once you detect that something is wrong, you have to escape and return. Do not care about the others. Do you understand?" A thought occurred to Huo Yuhao, and he could clearly read between the White Tiger Duke's lines. "Lord Duke, this operation has mobilized perhaps the most elite soul masters across the continent's 3 original empires. To be frank, I don't quite favor this mission. The plan is not detailed and thorough enough, and our enemies are too powerful. Our chances of success are really not favorable. If I act according to your words and don't participate in the attack, what will happen to them if I leave by myself? If they perish in the Sun Moon Empire, the impact to us." The White Tiger Duke fell silent. Huo Yuhao's senses were incredibly sharp, and he discovered, to his surprise, that a dash of embarrassment flashed across the bottom of Dai Hao's eyes. "Yuhao, I cannot explain too much to you. You have to remember to act according to what I've said, and ensure your own safety above all else." Huo Yuhao's expression gradually became solemn as he listened to the Duke's words. Even though he didn't explain things explicitly, he had spoken clearly enough, and it was evident that this mission had some nuances to it. It definitely wasn't as simple as it appeared on the outside. But the White Tiger Duke was unwilling to explain what these nuances were, and something was clearly holding him back. "All right, I understand." Huo Yuhao didn't probe any further. Even though he hadn't interacted much with the White Tiger Duke, they were related by blood after all. Even he didn't expect himself to subconsciously trust his father, even though they had never identified as father and son. The White Tiger Duke nodded seriously and said, "Please act according to what I've said. Do remember that." "Yes." Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong were arranged to stay in a tent on the mountaintop, and allocated one room each. But of course, they chose to sleep together. Tang Wutong shut the door as she lowered her voice and said, "It seems like there are many problems with this operation. The White Tiger Duke is trying to warn you." She could see that Huo Yuhao's eyes seemed a little strange. Others didn't know about his relationship with the White Tiger Duke, but how could she not know? Judging from his emotions, his hostility against the White Tiger Duke didn't seem as strong as before. This was fantastic from Tang Wutong's perspective, since no matter what, they were father and son after all. Furthermore, she knew that this hatred had been bothering Huo Yuhao for a long time. Huo Yuhao nodded and said, "He must have his reasons for not being able to explain. I don't think there will be any problems in the first part of this mission, but it's hard to say what the situation will be like after entering Radiant City. In the end, our task is to bring those titled Doluor into Radiant City, and what they do has nothing to do with us as long as we complete our task." What the White Tiger Duke was trying to tell me was exactly that, and that's why he kept reminding me again and again. Tang Wutong looked on as Huo Yuhao looked like he was contemplating. She asked probingly, "He seems very concerned about you." Huo Yuhao glanced at her. "Just ask whatever you wish to ask, Wutong. We don't have to beat about the bush with each other." Tang Wutong punched his shoulder gently and said, "You're so annoying, I'm just concerned about you. I think that your hostility towards him doesn't seem as strong as before." Huo Yuhao forced a laugh and said, "Even though I'm not willing to admit it, that appears to be happening. In the days that you were gone, I went back to see my mother's grave. It has been repaired and renovated, and he should be responsible for that. Afterwards, when we fought in the Star Luo Empire, we interacted a little more. I have been affected, and that's inevitable. But I have to avenge my mother." Tang Wutong nodded silently and said, "Let's talk about that after everything else. No matter what their mission's target is, their final goal is the same, to deal as heavy a blow as they can to the Sun Moon Empire, so that their invasion can be delayed. Let's return to the academy after completing our task." She didn't continue the conversation, like she wanted to avoid talking about it. The reason for that was because she understood that trying to change the hatred in Huo Yuhao's heart overnight wasn't possible. In the end, he had been bullied a lot when he was young, and his mother had died from her illness. These things were closely related to the White Tiger Duke's mansion, and she could thus only gradually reduce the hatred in his heart. Even if he had to take his revenge in the future, at least he would control himself in what he would do. Huo Yuhao said, "You're right. No matter what their target is during this operation, their final aim will be the same. We just have to do what we have to do. There's only one person I want to protect, and that's you." Tang Wutong giggled. "I'm a titled Doluor, so we'll see who has to protect who." Huo Yuhao laughed and said, "You can protect me too. Come, protect me, quickly." He opened his arms to Tang Wutong as he spoke. Tang Wutong laughed as she dodged away. "Have you forgotten how much it hurts?" Huo Yuhao immediately pulled a long face. "My dear, you have to ask your father to come when we go back this time and remove his seal. Otherwise, I'm going to go crazy." Tang Wutong giggled. "I think it's pretty good this way. You'll just have a slight taste of it. Isn't it always wonderful to have something to look forward to?" Huo Yuhao put on a depressed face and said, "You are beautiful. I have been too stifled." Tang Wutong blushed as she said, "Hurry up and cultivate. All you know to do is speak frivolous things." Two people sat opposite each other in a tent not far from them. It was the body Doluor, Dubuzi, and the heavenly son Doluor. "Brother Du, are we really going to listen to that little fellow's commands along the way?" The heavenly son Doluor asked Dubuzi with a little displeasure in his voice. Dubuzi nodded and said, "Don't underestimate that little kid, Heavenly Sunday. He surprised me more than once already, and he has a spiritual type martial soul. He has very unique abilities concerning concealment. Our operation is about to begin. Are you a little nervous? Otherwise, why are you so flustered? The heavenly son Doluo sighed and said, "It's not possible that I'm not even a little nervous. Looking at the Heavenly Soul Empire's situation, I'm truly worried about the Douling Empire. The Douling Empire's national strength is inferior to the Heavenly Soul Empire. Once the war starts again, if the Heavenly Soul Empire cannot hold our enemies back, we will fall as well. Therefore, our operation needs to happen. However, I don't trust that little fellow who's just a little older than 20. He's too young. If we are exposed before we even enter Radiant City, then we don't have a chance at all." Dubuzi said plainly, "That's why I said you're being nervous. Have you not paid attention to that youngster's aura? Can you tell what his cultivation rank is?" The heavenly son Doluo was momentarily surprised. He probably has around 7 soul rings. I felt their soul power undulations before this, and they are both around 7 soul rings. The body Doluo, Dubuzi shook his head and said, "No, you will realize after closer scrutiny that their true strengths are very unlike what they appear on the surface. Their soul power undulations of a 7-ringed soul master are fake. That kid's spiritual power is extremely strong, and even I was almost fooled. However, I realized upon closer inspection that his spiritual power is deep and vast like the ocean. I cannot tell what his true cultivation is, but it's definitely not at 7 rings." The heavenly son Doluo didn't really believe him. He's only a little more than 20. Even if he's from Shrek Academy, 7 soul rings is already quite impressive. Dubuzi answered, "You can inspect him a little more closely tomorrow. What I'm sure of is that if we wish to enter the Sun Moon Empire without leaving any tracks, letting the little fellow command us should have the best effect." "All right, we'll just let him command us." The heavenly son Doluo was evidently a little fearful of Dubuzi, and he didn't continue discussing the problem. "Is the news from Radiant City reliable, Brother Du?" The heavenly son Doluo lowered his voice and asked. Dubuzi nodded and said, "We have already confirmed our intel. They are my elite disciples, and there should be no problem with their info. After you succeed, you have to escape immediately. You don't have to worry about me, because I have people providing support on the inside. Safety won't be a problem. All right, be careful." Everyone gathered once more in the White Tiger Duke's command tent after breakfast in the morning on the second day. Huo Yuhao was still holding Tang Wutong's hand, and that wasn't just to display how intimate they were with each other. He also wanted to keep them in their strongest condition, but they were the only ones who knew that, of course. The White Tiger Duke lowered his voice and said, "Everyone, this operation is extremely important. It is related to the direction in which the war will proceed in the future. But please remember, everyone, that you are the cornerstones of your respective empires, and if our mission is unsuccessful, you have to ensure your own safety. We still have hope as long as you guys are around." The White Tiger Duke's words were heavy, but very sentimental and sincere. Everyone's expressions changed. The body Doluo, Dubuzi heaved a sigh and said, "I didn't think that would end up like this. There was once a time when I had absolute faith that we could keep our enemies beyond our walls, but it now seems like that's just laughable. We have been living in a cave, and that has caused us to lag too far behind. We can only give our all on this mission. No matter what, we have to succeed. We appreciate your thoughts, Duke, but if we don't put our lives on the line for this mission, then we have almost no chance of success. We have to give everything we have for our countries, no matter what. All right, let's move out." Dubuzi's status in the world of Soul Masters was very impressive. He was on the same level as Shrek Academy's elder Xian. The White Tiger Duke, Dai Hao, was just a junior in front of him. Be careful along the way. Good luck, everyone, and Godspeed. May you return with success. Dai Hao took a step back as he spoke, and bowed solemnly at everyone. Dubuzi turned towards everyone and surveyed them, before he took the first stride out from the commander's tent. The heavenly son Doluo followed closely behind, and the rest of the titled Doluo walked out after him. Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong walked at the end. Dubuzi didn't continue walking forward when he left the tent. Instead, his eyes fell on Huo Yuhao and said, "From now on, kid, we will all listen to your commands before we enter Radiant City. Don't worry, nobody will give you any trouble along the way, since I'm the one that's saying this. Everyone will listen to you, and that includes me. Now, what do we do?" Dubuzi's words were extremely overbearing and dominant. Only a person with his cultivation and his status in the world of Soul Masters could convince the other 14 titled Doluo. Huo Yuhao stared at the mighty body Doluo in surprise. He didn't expect that Dubuzi would be so supportive of him, as he knew that the body Doluo had had some run-ins with his teacher back in the day. It seemed like he had left everything behind, because his nation was in danger. He should have understood many things after the serious injury that he had sustained the last time around. Dubuzi was so supportive, and Huo Yuhao naturally had something to show for it. He hurriedly bowed in Dubuzi's direction and said, "Thank you for your trust, sir. I can't say that I'll command everyone, but I hope that we can all safely enter the Sun Moon Empire's territory. Afterwards, I will use some methods to help everyone conceal yourselves. Therefore, I hope that everyone can listen to what I say along the way. I will be most confident that way." Dubuzi smiled plainly and said, "You don't have to be polite. Give us something real." Huo Yuhao knew that if he couldn't display some of his abilities right now, these titled Doluo wouldn't be so compliant. Everyone respected strength in the world of Soul Masters. That had been the way 10,000 years ago, and was still the way 10,000 years later today. Even though Huo Yuhao was already a Class 9 Soul Engineer, he was still willing to call himself a Soul Master. Perhaps that was because he hailed from Shrek Academy as a Soul Master. Huo Yuhao's eyes glowed, and golden light flickered faintly at the bottom of his eyes, while gentle spiritual undulations emanated soundlessly. These undulations enveloped all 16 titled Doluos, including Tang Wutong. None of these titled Doluo detected his spiritual power, and only when Huo Yuhao shared his spiritual detection and entered their spiritual world did they realize what was going on. Every single one of the titled Doluo from the 3 native empires, including Dubuzi, changed their expressions in the next moment. When they realized that spiritual power had entered their own spiritual worlds, they attempted to push back against it. A Soul Master's spiritual sea was the core of their control over their own spirit. How could they just let someone enter? Only the Star Luo Empire's titled Doluo, who had experienced Huo Yuhao's spiritual detection before, didn't resist at all. But whether they were resisting or not didn't matter, as Huo Yuhao's spiritual detection completed the fusion very easily. That also meant that resistance was futile. Spiritual detection was like a large gauze, and all the titled Doluo's spiritual power was like water that rushed through the gauze. All that spiritual power couldn't stop it from moving forward. Even the titled Doluo from the Star Luo Empire, who were relatively more familiar with Huo Yuhao, didn't think his spiritual detection was so magical. Huo Yuhao just directly connected their spiritual power, and they didn't need to do anything at all. The world around them became completely three-dimensional in the next moment, and three-dimensional images from 360 degrees around them immediately appeared in the titled Doluo's minds. They felt like they had an eye looking down from the sky, and everything became much clearer. The Heavenly Sun Doluo and the other Soul Masters from the Doling Empire were most unfamiliar with Huo Yuhao, and when they felt how mystical Huo Yuhao's spiritual detection was, looks of astonishment appeared on their faces. What made them even more surprised came afterward. The three-dimensional images 360 degrees around them immediately expanded once they were connected, and began webbing out towards the distance. Everyone was just standing where they were, but their vision was beginning to stretch far into the distance, and it didn't take long before large masses of the Mingdo mountain range were within their sight. The body Doluo, Dubuzi turned towards Huo Yuhao as strange lights flickered in his eyes. Such formidable spiritual power. Have your eyes awakened for the second time, kid? Huo Yuhao was momentarily taken aback, before he shook his head and said, "I don't know if my eyes have awakened for the second time, but my martial soul has mutated before." Dubuzi heaved a sigh and said, "That's a pity. If only we'd met a little earlier, I would have been willing to take you as my last disciple, so that Mu Yen fellow didn't have it easy." Huo Yuhao frowned a little when he heard Dubuzi addressing his teacher respectfully. Dubuzi was incredibly sharp, and immediately saw the displeasure in his eyes. He smiled plainly and said, "You don't have to be unhappy. Even if Mu Yen was still alive, I could still address him like that. My big brother wouldn't be dead if not for him." A faint dash of deep and profound emotions circled in his eyes. This video will end here.